Hey everyone, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory podcast. On this episode, we have Joy from the Kansas City area in Missouri, and she has some very strange experiences to share with all of us. A lot of people wouldn't think it, but Missouri is one of the hottest areas in North America for Bigfoot activity, and it's top 10 in the nation for Bigfoot activity. I'm not sure exactly where it ranks, but there is a lot of stuff happening in Missouri, especially in the Ozarks. Although technically Kansas City is not located in the Ozarks, it certainly does have its fair share of strange activity. If you enjoy listening to Bigfoot encounters and strange activity that's taking place all over the world, be sure to subscribe to Sasquatch Theory, like the video, comment down below, and if you have a strange encounter to report, feel free to reach out sometime. With all that being said, let's dive into Joy's strange experiences from Kansas City, Missouri. Joy, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Pretty well, thank you for having me on the show, Miguel.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Joy, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your experiences from the very beginning, please.
Okay, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, south side. It was a relatively undeveloped area when we moved there many years back, and I have resided in both Kansas and Missouri and another state, and I'm back in Missouri now, in the Independence area.
Okay, very good. If you would, tell me about your first experience and just put me in your shoes and guide me through everything that happened that day.
Well, I was actually working on a research project regarding UFO sightings. At that time, we had a fairly active aircraft fly over quite often from Air Force. We had Richard Cabot Air Force Base. At the time, it was quite active. And we also had some flights from commercial airline. And where I grew up was rather wooded all around, and it was approximately 3/4 of a mile or so to my school building, but there was a large field, and in the back of the field, which was basically very close to where we live, within a 1/4 mile, was a woods and a stream. And at that time, 71 highway, which is now Interstate 49, was highly traveled, but many developments have happened with that particular thoroughfare, as well as all kinds of residential area being developed around there. So in context, back in that time, it was very odd. I was approximately, 16-ish, 15-ish, and I had an report that I had to do for school, and I thought, UFO sounds kind of interesting. I don't know if I'd seen any, I don't remember, but all of a sudden, the evening when I was trying to lie down and go to sleep, my room was in the basement behind concrete and a special kind of rock decorative that was real inside my room. And I had only the typical basement window, which was up rather high. And all of a sudden, when I'm in my bed, I look up and I see 2 red lights beaming through not the window, but the wall of concrete and rock. It's about 3 feet or 4 feet down from the top of the basement, and it was scary. And I told other people about it, including my boyfriend, who came over a few hours later after his job. And everybody kept saying, "Oh, it came through the window." I said, "No, I know what I saw. It came, the 2 beams, they were red, and they came through the wall." So that was the first really odd thing that I remember. And then later, I was with a different boyfriend, maybe a year or so later, and we were on the driveway at my house with my parents, Everybody else pretty much was inside, and we were looking at stars and feeling the breeze, and it was probably spring. No, I'm sorry, probably summer, early fall. Plenty of trees, nice breeze. And he and I look up at well, it was 71 highway at the time, and all of a sudden we see the profile of a tall, hairy individual, and it was evident it was walking at a time across the bridge when there was practically no traffic, which was very unusual. And it was probably somewhere between 9:30, 10:30 at maximum p.m. And he wanted to run down the street about a block and a half down to get a closer look. But my vantage point was up higher at my parents' house. So I opted to stay where I was and continue looking at it, continually walking. And it just strided as though, it was having a fine time just walking down a bridge to the south. And that would be just about 1 mile north of Red Bridge Road at the time. And we talked about it a little bit, and I don't remember anything he said. I've tried to reach out and find him, but he has quit that job that I used to have his number for. And now, more recently, an odd thing happened. Well, no, I want to go back, if you can edit, sorry. I want to go back now, possibly 1 year later. A friend of mine and I were in an area called Blue River Parkway, which is a park system that is obviously on the Blue River. It also is in the South Kansas City area, and it goes possibly about 1 mile to 2 miles south or more from an area that once was known as Bendix, which now is Allied Signal, I believe. And they had been making or designing the bombs for whatever use. And anyway, we were in this park a little farther north near 71 Highway and Blue Parkway. There are lots of, I don't remember if they're limestone, but they have cutaways where it obviously would cause water to come and leak out, sort of like a waterfall through the rock. And then during winters it would freeze. But he and I were out probably late spring, early summer, possibly later. And we were just sitting there doing something we should probably not have been doing. He said he wanted to go get some horoscope readings. So we ran to the store and grabbed a couple of magazines. And all of a sudden, in this area that had a big sign that said it was going to be designated for target practice, here came this thing. It was silver, and it had only a glow, and it hovered for approximately 200 feet above the ground and stayed there for maybe 2 minutes. And then it just silently moved away. Don't remember which direction it came from. I think it was southwest. And then I believe it left by the same direction. But he got very scared, even though he was an athlete. And he said, "What do we do?" And I said, "Well, if you're scared, you might try putting up your window, even though that probably won't help anything. Are you afraid of a UFO?" And then later we kind of lost touch, but I've tried to reach out to him and to the other party who was witness with me, and I have not been able to reach either yet. But either way, that's all I did see of UFO for sure. And then I know I've seen some other things, but more recently, about 1 year ago, I think, possibly a little bit later, I was out one night and it was nice weather, and I'd go outside a lot and do work in the yard or whatever, take care of the pets. And all of a sudden, I look up and I see something red in the sky that looked like the ball shape, a circle. But the weird part was it seemed to move. And then I didn't think much of it, other than someone who was texting me and calling me saying, oh, that's Apophis, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't know if it was. It might have been an orb. And I'm not exactly sure where I saw it in relation to where I live. But now I live a little farther to the east in a more country-esque setting. Although there are houses around, they're not as close as they used to be in the days when I lived like smack in the city or smack in a suburb. But about 1 month ago, I went out and I looked, and there was this round, reddish orange ball. I think it was more on the side of red than orange, but there was an orange tone too. And it kept moving, and it would not stay in one place. And it seemed as though if I moved, it moved. And that's the last thing I saw that I remember. And now I'm recollecting approximately 8 years ago, just beyond my property, which is approximately 1/2 mile from the river at most, there was a very low-flying aircraft that looked to be AFC. And there were these little things flying with it that appeared to be some type of drones. And I mean, that guy or gal went really low. And they came close to my property, and it was frightening. I had a witness, but unfortunately that person cannot speak anymore at this time. And that concerned me. Now, the Air Force Base is about 40 miles away, I believe. It's a different one than the one I grew up closest to. When I was young, the one closest was maybe 15 miles away. This one is approximately 40. And then about maybe 1 week after I saw what I believe might have been a reddish-orange orb, I started hearing guttural sounds at night and things that sounded like pretend owls. And I've heard coyotes mimic owls and turkeys and, other things, but I mean, this is really heavy. Some are more distant, some are closer, and it's just like very low tone and sometimes more like grunting, and I can't really say all the sounds I've heard, but I do know they don't all sound like the real animal I think is being imitated. But I can tell sometimes it's definitely not coyotes. I have not seen anything, but that's recently. But that's about all I have right now, and I've been watching your channel for about 1 month.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for sharing that with me, Joy. Do you feel like there's a connection with the crafts that you encountered and the Air Force Base that was nearby?
It's very possible, and I believe I actually wrote to you that I have also another thought regarding the DNA of the Sasquatch, the Momo, because back when I was younger, there used to be a radio station that would allow you to call in if you had a Momo sighting. And nobody but one seems to remember that radio station. It was a rock station, and I don't even know if it was realistic or if they were poking fun, but they used to have people call in. And I was too young and had not seen anything quite like that yet. And that radio station is long gone, but I just really don't know if some other research I did more recently in 95-ish would be related to genetic engineering that goes on in the greater Kansas City area.
Yeah, that's a very good theory. Can you tell me more about this bipedal hairy being that you saw across the bridge?
The only thing I could ascertain without any aided vision in the evening, there were some lights, of course, on the bridge and at the highway below and what like that. And I believe there was one light in the neighborhood down the road, but it appeared to be an honest to goodness one individual. No one on stilts. I remember saying that. No, it was not an ape face. The profile looked relatively normal-ish, just everything in the darkish, looked a bit hairy. And you could tell it was one individual, and it walked a fairly big stride. It possibly was around 10 feet tall, and it was apparent it was not somebody doing a joke, a hoax, whatever like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we spoke about this off air that there's been Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings, a lot of paranormal activity around Monkey Mountain. I believe that's east of Kansas City, but I'm not sure how close you are to that.
I'm not sure either. I did look on the map, and I believe it is about 10 to 8 to 13 miles from here. The only Monkey Mountains I could find were in I think it's called Green Valley or Oak Grove, which are south of this area, just a bit, maybe 10 miles or something. But there is no river there.
Yeah. And a lot of the experiences you had took place by the Blue River. How far away from the Missouri River is that?
Oh, wow, many miles. I wouldn't even know when I was growing up. I would say the Blue River, I could tell you, was probably 1 to 2 miles away at various places because I don't even know how it looks on a map really, but I know it wiggles a lot and it goes somewhat from the southwest to the northeast. And one other thing I do need to add, I cannot reach this person either. She and her brother also saw the UFO the same night, she said, and they were in a different part of the Blue River system called Swope Park. It was a residential area up on top of cliff. And again, cutaway cliff, neighborhood up top. And the Chiefs used to practice spring practice, in that Swope Park, but it only has a small pond and hardly anyone goes there anymore. And I believe a lake. And that was probably 7 miles or so from us. Our closest access to the river probably would have been about 15 miles in that neighborhood. But here, where I'm sitting now, is approximately 1 mile to 2 miles maximum from the river. And railroad tracks on each side of the town. Very small towns dot the east and west of the area.
Yeah, and the two beams of red light, that is really interesting. So it penetrated the concrete walls, and it sounds like these things are interdimensional since matter doesn't affect even their lights. What do you think was the meaning behind that?
I did not really know, and you're talking about a memory from very long ago. And everyone, of course, tried to explain it away and say, oh, it came through the windows. No, it did not. The boyfriend who came did look down to see if he could figure out the measurement of the distance. And he stayed a little extra because they were working at the stadiums cleaning after the games. And they didn't get out very early, maybe about 1 a.m. or so, got over after that to say hello. I remember he hugged me, tried to help me calm down because it was very disconcerting at the time. But because I was studying UFO and trying to make a report and try to find all the information that I could, it was different. It might have been a spiritual attack. I really do not know. I did not see any creatures outside. I didn't go look either. I just sort of was like praying a lot, I think, and waiting for that tap tap for him to come and see me, because this is frightening. And there were people in the house, but, I was the different one. I was the weird one. I was the black sheep. And I was always kind of into nature, and I was open-minded about considering many things. I
Yeah.
don't know if I really answered your question, but
Yeah.
when I was about 12, I had an instinct to get to know God better and find out truth. and I began studying the Bible more and trying to seek it out, what the truth might be. And when I was about, I think, 16-ish, somewhere in the same vein as a UFO sighting in the Momo, um, I had a serious situation of attack. And then when I was a little older, I was studying two books, the Bible, very much. I don't remember where I was reading, and another book to compare. It's a story called The Great Controversy Between Christ and Satan. And I literally had physical assault where I was being thrashed about and I was at home alone. And about not long before that, or maybe during that same week when my parents were gone to holiday, a man called who had tried to get an insurance settlement from me and threatened to kill me. And the police came and said for me to put my car into the garage. Any more threats, any more anything, please call and we'll be right here. And that's about all I know. And then I've also had knowingness through years about various things before they happen. I may not know all the details, but it could be very odd stuff. Like, for instance, one time I was probably, I don't remember if I was 17, 18, 19 in there. One of my brother's friends said he wanted to go on that road near the Blue River. And I told him no. I'd already seen that he would wreck his car. So he's tooling northbound on well, at that time, 71 highway. And there are cliffs, not many places to live in there. Woods on top, the cliffs, park system. And we missed the turn, and I was very thankful. I kept begging God, please don't. And then he said, oh, we just missed it, didn't we? I said, I told you don't go that way. And within 2 minutes, he was crashing his car against a large boulder. And we're out there all alone. I can't even tell you how we got help, but we did. And that's the kind of stuff that happens from time to time.
Yeah, so you feel like you're sensitive to the activity and that it's possibly spiritual warfare.
Correct. I absolutely know it is. And right now I have people in my neighborhood who are not following through on things they say they'll do, and an antagonistic so-called neighbor who has been causing trouble. And I know in Proverbs 21 it came in a devotional one day. Some people like to minister to neighbors, and I was like, oh my, maybe that's what I got here. And so, you try, and you try to stay the course, and God willing, someday God will allow someone to come and help me, because I had a friend who was a Marine veteran who was going to come and help, but he was having physical troubles with driving. And sadly, he ended up dying the day prior to my birth anniversary this year. Not long after he called to say he was having trouble driving, he did not think he could come and help me. And he would have been really good. He used to teach at a technical certified school for the natives in Alaska, carpentry. So, kind of sad. But anyway, those are the things that have been going on that I can remember right now. And I wish I could remember more about the orb, the exact date, didn't put it on the calendar, but I know whatever I saw about 1 year ago, it looked very similar, and it darted across the sky, reddish, with mostly red and a slight orange, which means a titch of yellow in it. But it was just a glow. And I thought, wow, that's really weird. And I've seen other things like aircraft that are unmarked. Even I see only colors and a shape. And I try to look it up online. I can't figure out whose it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen similar before, and I constantly have people contact me through email, sending me videos of like these strange red lights or orbs floating through the sky, and they seem to be intelligent. And like you said, it's almost like they follow your movements or even your thoughts.
There's two more quick things. When I was staying in California one year, my partner and I at the time were outside doing something, can't remember what, but we looked up and it was very, mountainous all around. Ocean not too far away, maybe. And here was this big reddish orange round thing again. Well, don't worry. One of the local television stations, said it was just simply a Chinese balloon. Somebody had a party and they released one. Now, between you and me, come on. If you're going to do that kind of party, wouldn't you release more than one? Yes. And we saw drones, type drone, very quiet hovering in Kansas City when we were in the Westport area, which is basically midtown. And it was frighteningly weird because it was right across the street. And we saw other things, but those are the main two things I can remember.
Okay. I appreciate you for sharing that with me, Joy. And one last question for you. Do you feel like the Sasquatch that you encountered is connected to the supernatural and the UFOs?
That's what I'm not certain about. But may I make one more comment regarding UFO?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not regarding a sighting, but I once dated a Native American man for a time who was from Oklahoma. I don't remember if he was from a reservation, but he was very intrigued by UFOs. So he wanted to go to the Blue River Parkway area and other parks nearby that had stream or, river cutaways, and you could see, oh, yeah, that's pretty deep. And we never saw anything together, but at one point he did ask me what I thought of the UFOs. And I said, well, I really am not sure, but I know one thing. Eventually, people will be crying for their governments to help them and save them. And I've since learned about Project Bluebeam and things like that. And I wish I could reach out to him, too. I can't find him either. I know he's back in Oklahoma. That's all I know. So I've tried to reach for others who were witnesses or had our conversations, and I can't find them.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I'm not really sure if this is a test, because I know about the holographic things they've done a little bit, not much. I know they've tried that out in Las Vegas. Hey, everybody, that's cool. And other places in the world say they've seen this or seen that in the sky and blah, blah, this and that. Well, I know there are demons and I know there are holy angels. And I know one thing, must definitely claim what we need to in order to discern and to eventually know. I'm not sure about their DNA. I saw one of your programs and one of the people had made a cast of a foot and it had 6 toes, supposedly, but I couldn't really see 6. I couldn't count them. But if, in fact, it is related to Nephilim, maybe. I know there are places that things can be and stay cold for a while. I really don't know how we would ever learn for sure unless we meet one and have a conversation if we can. I know that sounds creepy, kind of silly, but, different approaches, and I think we just have to be ready for whichever one we get. But I have had things thrown at my house. I have had sounds that I couldn't quite identify. And some of it I have learned some of them were, but I can't be 100% regarding all of them. And it's really dark at night. We don't have a bunch of lights in our neighborhood. And without, some way to see well at night, I'm not really sure what all I've seen at night and what might have been looking at me.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying to think about, and I definitely understand your concerns about it all. And I think a lot of people are wondering what's going on. Is this technology, things from other planets, or is the Bible unfolding just as it says?
I know it's the latter, and it could be unfolding in many different ways, which you touched on some. And I do know that when I was researching in 1995, I had 2 people tell me about a research lab in Kansas City, Kansas. And they were looking for a way to enhance the size of animals. But we also have in Kansas City other research labs that are, quote, medical research labs. And I see how they get their funding. And you try to reach someone you know works there, and you cannot get through. You must go through security. So I only knew of one person who ever worked at one of those many years ago, and that person is probably not alive anymore. And I never did interview that person because it didn't really occur to me what kind of research might have been done, you know? And now they go online, you look, I'm trying to remember the name of the research, Stowers, Stouer''S. And if you look to see the funding, it's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I had no idea that there were research labs in Kansas City.
Oh, yes, quite a few. We have the Federal Reserve, we have other stuff. I can't remember what all. FBI, they sit overlooking the river, and CIA, all kinds of places.
Yeah, including the military bases, which I feel
Correct.
like there's a connection there, especially with the Air Force Base.
Right. And I do now have my memory peaked due to what you just said. There is an Army base that I never knew existed till about 10 years or so ago. It is almost due southwest, about 8 miles away. And there is also an ammunition plant. That is called Lake City. And not far from there is an Army base. And it looks like training, you know, mainly. It's not the largest scale I've ever seen, but it's there. And I was like, wow, I never knew till I saw it. Oh, let me say one more thing, Miguel. I have at times been hearing within the last month or so what seems to be a report, you know, like a big boom, but it doesn't have the clack back that you expect. And I do know there is a Lake City gun range, and then you have the Lake City area ammunition plant, and then there's also the Army base right there, which is at the juncture of Independence and Blue Springs, Missouri, I believe.
Yeah, those are amazing details. And yeah, there's definitely something strange going on in Kansas City. And I think a lot of the times people think of Kansas City and they just think of city, but there's a lot of woods around there, major waterways, and a lot of strangeness happening.
Yes. And when I lived in Kansas, I can tell you, I don't remember seeing much there. I do remember once in Iowa visiting out in a big field, walking down an old gravel road out, you know, who knows what time, 9:10, it was dark, and looking up and seeing something, but I couldn't tell you what it was. It looked kind of like a UFO, but it didn't come down or anything. So I hesitate to even mention that. But it's kind of a process of a time frame, and I have met so many people, and I've seen so many things, and I
No,
don't think I should probably say much more. That might be it.
no, okay. No, that's fine. And you kind of cut out there anyway. So maybe somebody's listening and they don't want you to say it.
Oh, that's very possible because it's ironic how there's a school over there, and every single church has all the different towers and all the cameras. And I do know that they have the capability to do many things, especially with cell phones. I don't think satellite phones are quite as bad, and they have a better distance if you can afford them.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said off air, possibly it's disrupting these creatures similar to submarines messing with like dolphins, whales, and things like that. I've heard that the cell phone towers messes with like bees and things like that. So possibly maybe it's disrupting the senses from the cryptids and causing them to come out.
Yeah. I noticed even this year, which is kind of like coming out, a bunch of new bugs I've never seen. Well, we've had twice the amount of normal rain.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things don't stay underground or in caves too well when it's too crazy. All right.
Absolutely. All right, Joy, you did an excellent job at describing your experiences, and I'm really glad that you chose my channel to share your encounters.
Well, I just hope you're not reporting back.
No.
But if you are, they've already got me on that radar.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Joy. Well, I'm going to let you go for now, and if you have
Okay,
any
Miguel.
questions, feel free to shoot me a message, okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, and you have an excellent weekend, okay?
I'll do my utmost, sir. You too.
All right, you take care. Bye. All right, Joy. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you for sharing your experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory. And there was a lot there. I feel like the Sasquatch that walked in front of the vehicle is a typical report. Most of the sightings from people are from a vehicle. They are roadside crossings, and it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of waterways in Kansas City, and that seems to be where there's the most Bigfoot reports, is by the major rivers and just the regular sized rivers and small creeks. These things follow the waterways like highways and county roads, so that's typically where they are. And it makes sense because water is the source to all life. We need water to survive. That's where the Native Americans would set up camp, and that's where you find a lot of wildlife today. So that certainly does make sense. And the UFO activity, it could have something to do with the Air Force Base in Kansas City, the military bases in general anyways, but I'm not really sure. Maybe there's like an underground hive system there of, I don't know, like alien technology. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts about these UFOs, especially why the same areas where Bigfoot and cryptid creatures are being sighted is the same areas where people are seeing UFOs, and maybe there's a connection, maybe there isn't. If you have a Bigfoot encounter you would like to share with me on the channel, please contact me sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com, and I appreciate everyone and for your never-ending support. Until the next one, you guys be safe out in the forest.